Welcome to this edition of No Free Lunch, Economics for a Fallen World. I'm Professor Jeff Guernsey. I'm joined as always by Dr. Jeff Heyman, Dean of our School of Business and also the author of our textbook. So Jeff, today we want to talk about this thing that's called the broken window fallacy. Unpack that for us a bit.
Okay. Well, the broken window fallacy is basically the idea. There's a story, there's this hoodlum, and he goes and he picks up a rock and he throws it through the baker's window and breaks the window. And later the crowd gathers around and says, oh, this poor baker, he's lost the money because he's going to have to repair this window. And somebody in the crowd says, well, you know, there's a silver lining in this, effectively, because he's going to have to go spend money with the glazier to repair his window. And that money that the glazier gets, that money is going to be spent by the glazier in other parts of the economy. And so then it will go so forth and so on. And it's going to stimulate the economy. And so, you know, it's not all bad. Mm-hmm. And it's a fallacy that's ever present, and it's with us today. And so the question, Dr. Guernsey, is what's the fallacy in what I just said?
Yeah, I think why it's so powerful a narrative is people look at what they can see. What they don't is what is unseen.
Yes.
What is unseen in that case is now the baker is not able to spend that money on something he might rather have spent. Maybe he wanted to buy a new suit, or he wanted to improve his store, or you fill in the blank. And the other thing is we tend to look at the first consequence. Oh, the window's broken, the glazier comes in, fixes the window, but we don't look at the secondary consequences of a particular action. Yeah.
And the implications clearly, if this were true, the broken window fallacy, hey, that this is a good thing. Well, we ought not just break the baker's window. We ought to bulldoze his old bakery down, and in fact, let's not stop with him. Let's plow the whole town under, and we'll all be richer as we have to rebuild. And while we think that's absurd, and of course it is absurd, but that underlies virtually all of our public policy prescriptions today when we talk about stimulus. We fail to see, and we didn't use the word yet, but it's really important, we fail to see the opportunity cost, what we would have done. In the case of the baker, what could the baker have done? He could have bought a suit. That's the classic example that was used. And he would have had not only his original window, but he would have had a suit. It's true that after he repairs his window is still there, but he's poorer by the suit that he would have had purchased instead. And that the tailor that would have made that suit is poor, and that money would have gone, all that chain of spending doesn't take place. That's what you're referring to as the unseen. So
it's a more nuanced argument, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't fit a soundbite very well, because the soundbite is what we see to lay out what the secondary consequences are, to use that phrase. It's harder, and in our society it's just more difficult. It takes longer to make that argument.
And politicians who are that are usually pushing this out today are very easy to obscure those costs. There's a reason why, when we typically are doing a stimulus bill, nobody's going to raise taxes at the same time to pass the stimulus. They will borrow the money, and it will be future generations who do not have a vote, who do not have a voice. So it's making those costs, that opportunity cost, as hidden or as unseen as possible, such that it makes it easier for them to spend money today on projects that reward their constituents and get them reelected. So that complicates this. There's a lot of motivations for people to propagate this error, which benefit them totally. But we will get to a lot more of that whenever we come back and talk about our public choice chapter, which is later on in No Free Lunch.
Sure, yeah. Thanks very much for joining us today. I would encourage you, as you go through your day and week, to think about things that you come across that might be evidence of this, some of the principles behind a broken window fallacy, to look at your world, not just the seen but the unseen, not just the immediate, but the long term as well. So thanks again for joining us on this edition of No Free Lunch.